Hello everyone, Ryan here with Product Impressions, and today we are seeing what it's like to upgrade from the Pixel 4a to the new Pixel 6a. Let's go ahead and take a look at these two phones side by side. The specs are remarkably similar between these two. It's the same camera model, the same resolution on the screen, the same everything basically. So there are just a few things to note. Here you can see the two side by side. We got the 4a here and the 6a here. Let's go ahead and make the screens white so that you can see a little bit better detail. One thing that I do appreciate about the new 6a screen is the little camera cutout in the screen is centered. I like that a lot better than having it off on the side. And you can also see that it is significantly smaller than it is on the 4a. So here on the 4a, it's much larger and in the corner, and on the 6a, it is smaller and centered. The screen is the same refresh rate as well, so you're not going to notice any difference at all in the scrolling. That being said, it is a 60 hertz refresh rate where a lot of phones are starting to have 120 hertz. So when you go from the 4a to the 6a, you're not really going to notice that difference. But if you go from another phone that has a faster refresh rate, it is going to look a little bit choppier, not quite as smooth. You can also see in the corners around the 4a are significantly more rounded. So you can see the curvature around the corners, whereas on the 6a there's still a little bit of a curvature, but the radius is much tighter on it. It is a much nicer looking screen. You can see everything is basically the same as far as how it refreshes and all of that. Everything is very, very similar, which you would expect from Pixel phones because they are basically all running the same software. Now, if we also take a look at the rest of the phones, here you've got the fingerprint scanner on the back of the 4a, and it is a very matte plastic, no shine to it whatsoever. Here it is a much smoother and more reflective plastic. I think that the 6a looks a little bit more premium, though it is going to be perhaps a little bit slicker. I don't really care because I always keep my phones in cases. So as far as the fingerprint sensor is concerned, the 4a, you can find it on the back there and it's all right. It functions very quickly. On the 6a, it takes, I don't know, what is that, a third of a second, something like that. I have seen people online complaining about the fingerprint sensor on the 6a, saying that it is a little bit slow, and Google has had issues with their fingerprint sensor on all of their 6-line phones, the 6, 6 Pro, and now 6a. I would say I prefer having it in the screen over having it on the back like in the 4a, and given that I am not using a premium phone, I wasn't using a premium phone before, having it be a third of a second rather than a quarter of a second, that is not a big deal. It does not really matter. All right, I did take some photos, so let's go ahead and take a look at those. All right, here we are taking a look at some of the photos in comparison between the Pixel 4a and the 6a. On the left-hand side, you can see a light outdoor shot on the 4a, and in the middle you can see it on the same settings on the 6a. And these photos are basically identical. I can't really tell much of a difference at all between the two. And on the right-hand side, you can see something the 6a does that the 4a does not, which is the wide-angle lens. On the back of the 4a, you've just got the one lens, and on the back of the 6a, you have the same camera module, but also with a wide-angle lens. So there you can see what you can do with the 6a as opposed to just the 4a. Here we have photos taken in a very dark setting. The only lighting on here is the accent light in my bathroom that is a strip of LEDs that runs around the lower counter. And you can see on the left-hand side is the Pixel 4a. It's an okay photo, but it is a little bit unclear. It's a little bit dark. In the middle, you can see the 6a on the same settings. It's significantly lighter, and on the right-hand side, you see the 6a with the new night sight feature. It looks almost the same as a daylight photo, even though the light was extremely dim in the room. So all in all, I would say that if you are taking a lot of photos at night, this is a good way to go with the 6a. All right, well, the specs between these two phones are extremely similar, so in my general estimation. I was always a little bit unsure about the 4A because the screen was so small. I didn't want to have, like, I was carrying around a tablet in my pocket, but this eventually over the last couple of years got to be a little bit smaller than I wanted, so I switched to this 6A, and I do appreciate the added screen size, the smaller hole for the punch-out camera on the front, the selfie camera. I really appreciate all of that, and I think ultimately, is it worth $450 for this one? There are some features on Pixels that are not available on other phones, so I would say it's definitely worth considering. But you can probably get something in like the mid-range line from Samsung or a couple other manufacturers that would have similar specs. I've had a good experience with Pixels, honestly, so I would probably still go with this. But as to whether or not it is the hands-down best or anything like that, you'll have to look elsewhere. I'm really just comparing from going from 4A to 6A. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I will answer any that I can, and otherwise, like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.